Okay, Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. For our class today, we are going to continue with chapter 2, which is processes and procedures, right? So for this chapter, we are going to go through what would be some of the language functions and also sentence structure and grammar that you must pay attention in order for you to describe processes and procedures. So let's have a look at this one. All right. So first of all, why it is important for you to learn about processes and procedure is because when it comes to product descriptions and also services description, it is also best if you could also highlight on the processes or the procedures that take place for the product or for the services by being able to explain the processes and the procedures of how things is made, how something is produced, and so on, that could give more understanding, and that could also create awareness towards the consumer or towards the user, and make sure that they appreciate the product or the services provided in the market, right? So let's have a look at the differences between processes and procedure here. I think you all are clear by now. Processes is a series of steps to achieve an end. So most of the time when we talk about processes, it involves things that you want to produce. So towards the end of the process, you will see that there's something there's a result there, there's something being produced, all right, and it's dynamic. So when it comes to processes, they allow you to change, they allow you to skip the process. I mean, you could alter some of the steps or stages. It is operated and so on, causes things to happen. Okay, whereas when you talk about procedures, it is more toward a way of accomplishing a task. So procedure is more towards rules stated by organizations, stated by certain companies and so on, manuals, right? That help you to achieve your goal or to accomplish a task, right? So it is implemented. So normally we have somebody who come out with a procedure, and then it is static. It is very static because most of the time when we talk about procedure of course registration, procedure of how to apply passport, Malaysian passport, procedure of applying driving license. So it's very static. I mean, you cannot change or skip the procedure itself, the stages given, because if you skip any of the step, if you change it, you might not accomplish the task given. So that's the differences between processes and procedures. More or less the same, but used differently for different purpose, right? Okay. Yeah, and procedure, it causes people to take actions and make decision. So it urge people to do something. That is procedure. All right. So you must complete the task. Okay. All right. So when we talk about processes and procedure, you will use a lot of sequence connectors. This will help people to understand the stages or the steps given in the processes and procedure. Okay, imagine sequence connectors. Imagine that you are going to a new destination, all right? So if let's say you don't have Google Maps, you don't have navigations and so on, you will look at the signboards, right? For guidance to go to that destination. Okay, so signboards is important to take you to your destination. Sequence connectors is important. It works similar as a signboard. it works as a signboard to the audience who's listening to your presentation, and it will guide them to the point that you are sharing with them. It will guide them to understand the processes and procedures itself. They will know that what will come next, what will happen after that, and so on. Okay, so sequence connectors is very important as a guideline, okay, as a signboard in presentation, right? So towards the beginning, these would be some of the sequence connectors that you may want to use first first of all, in the body. So these would be some of the sequence connectors that you might want to consider using. Next, then the next step is in the next stage, before or beforehand, prior to this. I mean, the step before that, right? Earlier or previously, when this happened, or during, and so on. Okay, and when you come towards the end of the processes, or towards the end of the procedures, you will use the words such as finally, lastly, the last step is, in the last stage, and eventually. Okay, all right, so please make sure you sequence connectors when presenting about processes and procedures. Okay, right, so see, I would like to share with you a sample. Right now, Blackpink is popular with their new song Ice Cream, right? So I guess this will remind you a lot about ice cream. Let's have a look at this article. How is ice cream made? Right. So as you can see, this article is sharing with you the processes that it takes to make ice cream. Okay, and this is also to highlight to you how to use sequence connectors correctly. Right. Okay, so you can go through the articles. All right, let me read to you. So how is ice cream made? At home, you can make ice cream in the freezer or in an ice cream maker, but if you need to make thousands of liters a day, you need to use a different method. This is what happens in an ice cream factory. First of all, you see the sequence connectors here to start the process, right? First of all, the necessary ingredients are weighed out and mixed together. Second, the mix is pasteurized. When this happens, it is heated to a high temperature to kill off any harmful bacteria. Subsequently, the mix is also homogenized. This means breaking down the fat globules in the milk or cream to make them smaller. Now, the ice cream will be smoother, will whip better, and won't melt as easily. Right, so as you can see here, they are using many sequence connectors to help you bind all the processes, right, to help you glue all the processes and guide the readers. Okay, so what will happen after they wait, and then they will the mix is pasteurized. So what does it mean by pasteurized? When this happens, it is heated to a high temperature to kill off any harmful bacteria, right? So pasteurized means you heat something to a high temperature because you want to kill off any harmful bacteria. So subsequently, after that, the mix is also homogenized. So what does homogenize mean? This means breaking down the fat globules in the milk or cream to make them smaller. So that is homogenized, right? So by having all this happen, you will get a smoother ice cream. You know, remember the ice cream that you had at McDonald's? I think it's very smooth, it's very silky, very soft, right? So it happened because it has been homogenized, right? They have break down the fat globules in the milk, so it's not as creamier as some other ice cream. Okay, moving on. In the following stage, the mix is then left for at least 4 hours, usually overnight, to let the fat cool and form into crystals. Any flavors, fruit purees, or colors are then added. Next, the mix is pumped through a special barrel freezer, which freezes some of the water in the ice cream. At the same time, the barrel freezer whips air into the mixture. As a result, up to half the volume of ice cream is air. Without it, the ice cream would be like a frozen ice cube. After this, any fruits, nuts, sweets, or biscuits bits are added to the semi-frozen mixture. Right? So this is what happened after they had pasteurized and homogenized the ice cream. So what they did is they left it for a few hours, and then they added fruit, any flavors, and then they pump it to a special barrel freezer and to whips air into the mixture. Alright, so the ice cream that you had is half cream, half air, right? So that's make it very light, very smooth. It is you can enjoy it a lot. So your ice cream has a lot of air inside them. Okay, right. So meanwhile, in another, sorry, I think the should not be here. Meanwhile, in another area of the factory, a special machine will label and sterilize the containers for which it will be used to store the mixture. Immediately after sterilization, the ice cream is then packaged and put into a blast freezer at negative 30 Celsius to negative 40 degrees Celsius, where more water in the ice cream is frozen to make it harder. In the last stage, the containers are stored in freezing storage and finally ready to be delivered to stores and supermarkets, right? So, as you can see towards the end, you can use sequence connectors such as in the last stage and finally. Okay, so by looking at this, I hope you can make use of the sequence connectors whenever you are explaining about any processes or any procedures in the while describing products and services later. Okay, right. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, sorry. As you can see the word weighed out. So you can see most of the verb here has ed. Okay, is pasteurized. When it is heated, right? The mix is also homogenized. It has ed here. So when you see this, most probably you will say that this is past tense. But let me tell you, it is not past tense. Alright, it is another form of sentence structure which mostly used when describing processes and procedures. Okay, so let's have a look at what this is called. Okay, right. So next, we are going to move on into passive voice sentence. Like I said just now, we know past tense, we know present tense, right? So we know active sentence. Now this is passive sentence. Okay, so most of the time we use active sentences for present tense and past tense. But there is also another form of sentence which is called passive voice sentence. So for passive voice sentence, it is relevant to be used whenever you are describing processes and procedures, because you do not want to focus so much on the person who perform it. you just want to focus a lot on the what happened, on the object receiving the action, right? So let's have a look at how to transform active verbs to passive verbs. Okay, so let's have a look at these two texts, all right? Both are talking on the same process, which is how coffee beans are processed, all right? How coffee is made, it is processed, okay? On the left column, all right, on the left box, you can see that the verb, the one underlined is the verb, right? The verb is in the form of active, okay? Where else on the right box, the verb are on the form of passive, okay? So let's have a look at here. Let's have a look at on the left box first, right? So if you were writing in the form of active sentences, right? This is how you are going to write the process. So you are going to mention first, the farmers pick the coffee beans from the tree and dry them in the sun. Then the farmers roast the beans and cool them rapidly before grinding. The farmers then mix the beans with hot water and strain the mixture before they freeze them. Finally, the farmers grind the frozen mixture and dry them in a vacuum before they pack them into jars, right? So this is how active sentences is written. Most of the time you will have the person who perform it, you will have your noun, your subject, okay, the farmers, and then you will have the verb, the farmers. What did the farmers do? They pick. The farmers pick the coffee beans from the tree and dry them in the sun. Okay, so let's have a look at the right box. As you can see in the right box, we do not mention the person anymore. The person has been taken off. We do not mention who did all these things, okay? What our focus goes straight away into what happened. What happened to the coffee beans, okay? So instead of using the farmers, we change the subject of the sentence into the coffee beans, okay? So we do not want to focus on who did the action. We just want to focus on what actually happened to the things, all right? What actually happened to the receiver of the action. Okay, so this is how you write it now. First, the coffee beans are picked from the trees and dried in the sun. Then the beans are roasted, right? Okay, then the beans are roasted and then cool rapidly before being ground. The beans are then mixed with hot water and the mixture is strained before it is frozen. Finally, the frozen mixture is ground and then dried in a vacuum before it is packed into jars, right? So number one, you can see that the subject change, right? Instead of having the person in front, now we have the receiver of the action in front as your subject, okay? Number two, you see the verb change, right? So instead of having a verb in the form of present tense, right? Okay, now you have a verb in the form of similar to past tense, okay? But this is not past tense, okay? This is what we call past participles, okay? This is what we call past participle. So you can see that for this kind of verb, it's very similar to past tense, okay? However, you have be verb here. You have be verb before you can have the verb in the form of past participle. So you have are picked, you have are dried, you have are roasted, and then you have are cool, are mixed, is strained, is frozen, is ground, is dried, is packed. Okay, so that's the differences between active and passive. Okay, right, so let's have a look at why we should use passive voice sentence. Okay, so the number one reason why you must use passive voice sentence is because number one, we do not know who the subject is, or it is not important who the subject is. Okay, so when you explain about the process, sometimes it is not important to highlight who the subject is, right? Somebody picks the coffee beans, so it's not important to highlight who picks the coffee beans. Yeah, we can assume the farmers. The farmer might pick the coffee bean, but it can also be other people, right? It can also be, just somebody, right, that we do not know. Okay, so when that happen, it is not important to highlight on this, so that's why we do not want to use active sentences. We use passive sentences. So you do not mention the person anymore. You change your subject into the receiver of the action. The coffee beans are picked, right? So as simple as that. Okay, so that is number one. One reason why you want to use passive voice sentence. Number two, when it is obvious to the listener or reader who the subject is because the person who usually does it, right? So the reason number two is when everyone knows who actually do the action, all right, it's not necessary for you to mention. For example, coffee beans, right? Everyone knows somebody must have done it, and then most of the time the farmers must have done it. Okay, so it's understood. That's why you do not need to mention who performed it anymore. You just simply go straight into the coffee beans are picked. Okay, so that's the two reasons why we use passive voice sentence. Okay, active voice sentence versus passive voice sentence. So I think I already highlighted to you what are the differences between active voice sentence and passive voice sentence, right? But let's have a look again, right? So for active voice sentence, it happens when the subject of the sentence is acting. When the subject is the doer, I mean the person who performed it. For example, the farmers pick. So who picked the coffee bean? The farmers picked the coffee bean. So when you have the subject who is actually acting, who is the doer, the person who perform it, this is what we call active voice sentence. So we have subject, we have verb, we have object at the back. Who perform it? What is the action performed? And what is the receiver of the action? Okay, so that is active voice sentence. Subject, verb, object. Okay, but for the passive voice sentence, when the subject is, it happens when the subject is receiving the action. Subject is the receiver. Okay, so for passive voice sentence, the subject is actually the object. So you take the object at the back, you put it in front. That is passive voice sentence. The doer is optional or appears in a phrase introduced by the preposition by. Okay, so normally we do not mention who's the doer, but if you want, you can put by at the back. Okay, so for example, like I said, you bring the object. Here, you bring the object to the front. So you start your sentence with the coffee beans are picked. Okay, this is what we call passive verb. Passive verb consists of be verb, is, are, was, were. And then it consists of verb in past participle. Mostly you have ed. Okay, the coffee beans are picked from the trees. If you want to mention who picked it, you will say the coffee beans are picked from the trees by the farmers. Okay, but if you don't want to mention, you can put a stop here. And if you don't want to mention, if you don't want to tell them where, you can put a stop here. Coffee beans are picked. So that is already considered a grammatically correct sentence. Okay, right. So, like I said just now, passive voice sentence, it consists of object, passive verb, and then maybe the subject at the back. Okay. So what is passive verb? Passive verb is combination of be verb plus verb in past participles. Okay. So are you still following? I hope you do, right? Okay. So be verb is all the verb, right? That consists of is, are, am, or was, or were. So for the be verb, you have singular form and you have plural form. Okay. How to differentiate the usage of it? You have to look back at your object. You look back into your object in front. If the object is one, then you must use singular be verb. Okay. If the object in front is plural, you must use plural be verb. Okay. So for example, like I said just now, the coffee beans, right? For example, the coffee beans. Is it plural or singular? It's plural. It's many, right? So you must use are. The coffee beans are picked, right? So this is what I mentioned by singular and plural be verb. Okay, so most of the time for processes and procedure, you will most probably use this be verb, is or are. You rarely use past tense be verb because past tense is only for reports, for things that happen in the past. If you want to write incident reports, if you want to write a police reports, and so on. So you might want to use past tense. But for processes and procedure, most probably the process that you are presenting is relevant to the present. Okay, alright. So that is how they, for example, just now, this coffee beans, right? Those days, this is how people process it. Now, this is also how people process it. And in the future, maybe that is also how people process it. All right. It's facts. Okay. If you were talking about facts, something that is the truth, then you might want to put it in present tense. You do not want to put it in past tense because past tense means anything that only happened in the past. So, not really use when describing processes and procedure. Okay, right. So you might want to use this one, is or are, okay, depending on the object in front. And also you will match your be verb with the verb in the form of past participle. So like I said just now, remember I said there are three forms of verb: present, past, and also past participle. Most of the time we use the verb in the form of present and also in the form of past tense. However, there are also verb in the form of past participles. Okay, right. So what are the differences? Most of the time there were not many differences. Okay, so if you are using any regular verb, which let me tell you, most of the verb are regular verb. Okay, we have a lot of verb that comes in the form of regular verb. Okay, so when all these verb transform into past tense, you just simply add ed to it, right? So for all the regular verb, you just add ed to the past tense. And same goes to the past participle, you also add ed to them. Okay, so they are very similar to past tense form. So pick become pick, and past participle is also pick. Cool become cool, and also past participle cool. Alright, so ed, you just add ed to them. Okay, dried, dry become dried, and dried. Okay, so however, there are also some irregular verbs. Irregular verb, this kind of word, they will take a new form when you change into past tense, and a new form when you change into past participle. So, for example, the word grind, past tense is ground, past participle is also ground. Okay, the word freeze, past tense is froze, the past participle is frozen. Okay, the word take, past tense is took, and the past participle is taken. Okay, another example would be the word give. Past tense is gave. Past participle is given. Very good. Okay, I'm assuming you guys are telling me the answer. Another word would be the verb write. Okay, when you have write, past tense is wrote, past participle is written. Very good. Okay, drive, drove, driven. Okay, so not many irregular verbs that we have. Maybe we have around 200 irregular verbs. Okay, but the rest is all just regular verb that you can add ed to them. For the irregular verbs, it will change into a new word. Okay, like this. So you have to memorize them. You have to know them. Okay, right. So how to transform active verb to passive verb. Okay, so these would be the steps taken to transform them. I think, I hope this is clear, alright, the 5 steps. So I will use these samples on to teach you how to transform. Okay, so for example, assume that this is the active voice. The farmers pick the coffee beans from the tree. But when you change into passive verb, passive voice sentence, it will becomes into this. So how does from this you change into this? What are the steps taken, okay, for you to change, right? I will share with you the steps, okay? How to change this sentence into the coffee beans are picked from the trees by the farmers. Okay. Step number 1, you must identify the subject, verb, and object of the active sentence. Okay, identify them. You know, active sentence is always start with the subject, right? So the farmers are the subject. Pick are the verb. Okay, pick, you pick something. So those are the verb. The coffee beans are the object. Okay, subject, verb, object. So for active sentences, it's always that particular form. Okay, so once you had identified, you move into step 2, change the position of the subject and object. Okay, so when you had identified, you are going to change. You put the object to the front, you put the subject to the back. Okay, so you will have the coffee beans in front, and then you have the farmers at the back. Okay, step number 3, transform active verb to passive verb. Okay, so just now you had changed the position. Now you are left with the verb. What to do with the verb here? Pick, right? The verb pick, you are going to add be verb and past participle. Okay, so to add be verb, how do you know you're going to use are? You look at the object. What are the object? The coffee beans. It's plural, right? So that is why you use are. Okay, and then look at the word pick. Is it regular verb or irregular verb? If you know that that is regular verb, you just add ed to them. Okay, you just add ed to the verb. So you will have the word are picked. So now your sentences will be, the coffee beans are picked from the trees, the farmers. So when you insert passive verb here, this is the sentences. However, for step number 4, this is still incorrect. Alright, so you must have one more step, which is step number 5. Add the word by. When you add the word by, then only your sentence structure will be grammatically correct. Okay, the coffee beans are picked from the trees by the farmers. So if you do not want to mention who picked it, you just put a stop here. Alright, so there are 5 steps how to transform active verb to passive verb. I think the step is very easy for you to understand. Alright, so let's recap. Step number 1, you want to identify the subject, verb and object of the active sentence. So most of the active sentence, it will start with the subject and then followed with the verb and then followed with the object. And then from the 3 is additional information lah, right? Anything that tells you where it happened, when it happened, how it happened, those are what we call additional information. Okay, but the main structure is this one: subject, verb, object. Okay, so step 2, you are going to change the position of the subject and object. So object goes to the front, subject goes to the back. Okay, so this is the object, the coffee beans. This is, you retain the verb here, pick. From the 3 also goes to the front. Okay, the farmers goes to the back. So you bring object to the front, you bring subject to the back. Okay, you retain the rest in the middle. Okay, step 3, transform active verb to passive verb. So the verb pick just now, you are going to transform into passive verb. So you add be verb, is or are, and then you change the word pick into past participle. Okay, so the be verb, because the subject, because the object just now is the coffee beans, a lot, right? So you must use are. And then pick, because this is just regular verb, you add ed to them. Okay, now step number 4, insert passive verb. Because you had changed that, you put it back here. So the coffee beans are picked from the trees, the farmers. Okay, and last but not least, you add the by phrase here. The coffee beans are picked from the trees by the farmers. So the subject at the back is optional. If the subject is not important or too obvious, the subject is drop. Okay, like I said, the subject at the back, right, is optional. If it's not important, you just drop them. Okay, the coffee beans are picked from the trees. That's all. Okay, so I showed you a simple present tense. Okay, sentences. That's why it is are stolen, are cut, are drunk, right? However, there are also many other sentences, simple future tense. So will collect, it will, you have to add the be verb. Like I said, will be collected, will be paid. Past tense, clean, were seen. Okay, present continuous. I think this, if you would like to know more, it will be good for you to explore all this as well. But for now, maybe we just stick to simple present tense. I think that would be for the first time. I think let's stick to this because you will mostly use this one, right? Okay. All right. So exercise. Fill in the blanks with either is or are or am. Okay, so you must identify whether to put is or are or am. right? So number one, the crumbs. What do you think the answer? I think it should be are, right? The crumbs are treated with carbon disulfide. Okay, because it's plural, are treated. Okay, number two, the furniture. Is it plural or singular? I think this is a group, right? So it takes after singular form. So the furniture is painted with special varnish. The molten metal, singular or plural? It's molten metal, right? It's liquid form. It's metal that has been melt. Okay, molten metal. I think because it's liquid, it has to take a singular form. So molten metal is forced into the dies. Okay, next one. The two solutions. Okay, look at here. You see S to the object and you see the word two. Okay, so it's more than one. Even though its solution is liquid, right? But when you have quantifier, when you have S here, that means two types. Your be verb must also be plural. The two solutions are mixed in the heat-proof beaker. Okay. Next one, two shovelfuls of sand. Look at the quantifiers. Two shovelfuls, so with an S. So even though this is sand, but they have quantifiers, so your answer will be plural. Two shovelfuls of sand are put into a wheelbarrow. Okay, look at the word put. Put is an example of irregular verb. Present tense, it is put. Past tense, it is put. Past participle, it is also put. Okay, you cannot put ed and so on. That does not comes right. Okay, all right. So next one, credit cards. Credit cards. Look at the S here. Okay, are used in both business and personal transactions. Okay, the cement is sent to the factory. The cement liquid form, right, is sent to the factory. Butter, how many butter? Only one, right? Butter is made from milk. Okay, look at the word send and made. Okay, send as present is send, past tense is sent, past participle is also sent. Okay, look at the word made. Present is make, make. Past tense is made. Past participle is also made. Alright. Cars, as here, are manufactured in America, Japan, and Korea. BTS. Sorry, no. Okay. And the last one, the books are published by that company. Okay, the books, many, right? So you have to use are. Okay, so that's how you added your be verb into the passive voice sentence. Okay, and be careful with the verb as well. All right. So I have exercise 2 here. You are given the verb in the bracket. So what you need to do is to identify how to change this into passive verb. Okay, you look at the object. Don't forget to look at the object and then decide whether to use is or are. And then look at the verb and decide whether to have D or to change it into something else. Okay, so this is for exercise 2. Please do it. Later, I will prepare Google form maybe for you to submit your answer. Okay. So for exercise 2, you have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Now the next one, how to prepare coffee. Because this is very simple, right? Very easy. You have been given the verb, and then the sentences is already in passive voice sentence. So you just need to add the passive verb here. But for this one, you are given active voice sentence, and you must change them into passive voice sentence. Okay, so how are you going to do that? So number 1, I prepare the ingredients such as coffee powder, creamer, and sugar. I help you out for number 1. This is your subject, this is your verb, and this is your object. Okay, this is your object. So you change them, right? The ingredients such as coffee powder, creamer, and sugar are prepared. So that will be number 1. Okay, are prepared with D. Okay, so try and do number 2, number 3, and number 4. So number 1 as well, I think I will leave in the Google form for you to write it back. Okay, and the last one, same. Transform the active voice sentence to passive voice sentence according to the 5 steps mentioned earlier. So the factory manufactures the product to the customers, the company publishes a new book today, Bob builds a dog house using recycled materials. Okay, 3 sentences, try to change them. Okay, so you have exercise 2. Next one, this one, how to prepare coffee, this exercise, and also individual practice, the last exercise. Okay, all right. So this one, flow chart, I think this one you can read on your own. I do not want to touch on this, but a flow chart is how to transform linear text into non-linear, because linear text is very long, right? This is what we call linear text. Linear text is very long sentences. Sometimes people find it hard for them to get the information, get the stages, and so on. So that is why you want to use flow chart. All right, to present processes and procedures. Okay, so you can use this method, block diagram flowchart, and then you can learn more, explore more about this one. All right, example of a block diagram flowcharts. Okay, and then this would be the non-linear form, and then this is the this is linear form, right? And then this is the non-linear form. If you have the time, you can also try and do this practice, but for today, maybe focus on this one only. This one, exercise 2, how to prepare coffee, and individual practice. Okay, so that's all for today. I'll prepare the Google form, and then you will submit your answer there. Thank you everyone, and have a good day.